sa ating saligang batas. In fact, in the first and second hearings already conducted by the committee, the following were seen. Number one, gaps and abuses of Joint Circular number 2015-01 dahil makikitang mas mahigpit pa ang Circular number 97-002 sa cash advances kumpara sa Joint Circular 2015-001 ng Confidential at Intelligence Fund. Number two, irregularities in the utilization of confidential fund ng OPP. Number three, rekomendasyong amyendahan ng OWA ang policy ng 180-day period to appeal dahil ito ay mahaba masyado. Number four, regularity kung paano ginamit ang pondong inilaga sa OPP at DepEd, halintulad na lang sa DepEd na hindi pala maayos na naipatutupad ang last mile school projects, pati ang school-based feeding program kung saan madaming nasirang pagkain. At number five, rekomendasyong mag-submit ng salin ng accountable officers and special dispersing officers at iba pa. Ang Kongreso ang guardian of public funds. Ang investigasyon ng government transaction is a proper exercise of the power of inquiry. Kabilang sa mga transaksyon ito, ang government agencies created by Congress and officers whose positions are within the power of Congress to regulate or even abolish, since Congress has authority to inquire into the operations of the executive branch. It would be incongruous to hold that the power of inquiry does not extend to executive officials who are the most familiar with and informed on executive operations. Narapat lamang na maipatawag ang mga empleyado ng executive na mas nakakaalam ng mga transaksyon pinasok nila. The power of inquiry with process to enforce it is grounded on the necessity of information in the legislative process. If the information possessed by executive officials on the operation of their offices is necessary for wise legislation on that subject, by parity of reasoning, Congress has the right to that information and the power to compel the disclosure thereof. It also follows that non-compliance and unjustified, baseless refusal with congressional inquiries is tantamount to a violation of the Constitution. Kung sa kaso nga ng Standard Chartered Bank versus Senate Committee on Banks, Financial Institutions, and Currencies 2007, the Supreme Court recognized that the Senate Committee on Banks summoned Standard Chartered Bank merely as the source persons or as witnesses. In a legislative inquiry, hindi bilang akusado sa isang criminal case, nor will they be subjected to any penalty by reason of their testimonies. Dahil dito, hindi nila pwedeng baliwalain ang pagharap sa Komite ng Senado. Hindi rin sapat na dahilan na dahil may kinabinbin ang kaso sa Korte ay hindi nasisipot sa pagdinig ng Kamara. Sa 2009 case of Romero versus Estrada, the Supreme Court emphasized that the inapplicability of the sub judice rule to inquiries in aid of legislation is not limited to criminal or administrative cases. It can be extended to appeal cases and special civil actions awaiting final disposition before the Supreme Court. Otherwise, it would be extremely easy to subvert any intended inquiry by Congress through the convenient ploy of instituting a criminal or an administrative complaint. Surely the exercise of sovereign legislative authority of which the power of legislative inquiry is an essential component cannot be subordinate to a criminal or administrative investigation. This doctrine in Standard Chartered Bank has been adopted in Section 1 of the 19th Congress published Rules of Procedure governing inquiries in aid of legislation. To wit, the filing of pendency of a case before any court, tribunal, or quasi-judicial or administrative body shall not stop or abate any inquiry conducted to carry out a legislative purpose. Kung tungkol naman sa karapatan ng mga witnesses that include, among others, the right to due process, the right against self-incrimination, as well as the right to privacy of communications and correspondence of a private nature, the late Father Joaquin G. Bernas noted that since these rights are already enshrined in the Bill of Rights, the requirement under Section 21, Article 6 of the Constitution does not really create any additional constitutional right. Ito ang totoong karapatan ng mamamayan na malaman saan at paano ginastos ang kaba ng bayan. Bilang public officials, hindi ba nararapat lamang na ating sagutin ang mga katarungan ito? Hindi ba at nasa konstitusyon na public officers and employees must at all times be accountable to the people, serve them with utmost responsibility, integrity, loyalty, and efficiency, act with patriotism and justice, and lead modest lives? Kaya aking hinihikayat ang iba pang kawani ng pamahalaan na may kinalaman at kaalaman tungkol sa mga transaksyong ating sinisiyasat na lumabas na at lumapit sa House Blue Ribbon Committee upang tulungan tayong ilabas ang katotohanan sa paggamit ng pondo ng bayan upang magamit ito sa mga mas may katuturang bagay. Hindi nararapat na ang sambayanang umaako ng buwis pa ang maghihirap malaman ang katotohanan. We owe it to the Filipino people to render accounts. I move on to the Committee Secretary to provide the committee an update on the invitations, requests, correspondence, submissions, and compliance.
Your Honor, may I also recognize Assistant Secretary for Procurement of the Department of Education, Mr. Leo Masaya, and Ms. Saline May April Campo from the Commission Audit State Auditor. Now, for the updates, the Committee Secretary has sent invitations via electric mail to all the agencies. To OVP, we have received their reply to the show cause order that was duly issued and served previously. For the Commission on Audit, they have submitted and complied with the Subpoena issued by the committee on September 25, 2024. For the Bureau of Treasury and the DBM, DBM also submitted and complied with the previous requirement to submit documents relating to the confidential fund of the OVP. And no additional submissions from the other agencies, Your Honor. Update as well, Your Honor. For the show cause order issued, at present, the Secretariat notes the absence of Mr. Edward Fajarda, as well as the new invitee, spouse of Mr. Edward Fajarda, Ms. Sunshine Fajarda. Some of the additional invitees as well for the Department of Education are not present, or the Committee Secretary has not been informed of their presence, particularly Attorney Bradley De Castro, Attorney Respi Osayas, are not here today, Your Honor. Pardon, Your Honor, Mr. Respi Osayas is present. Attorney Respi is for all our guests, resource persons, and witnesses, if you have not been recognized, kindly approach the mic, introduce yourself and your agency and your designation. Thank you. Please take your seat. Attorney Zias, thank you.
Mr. Chair, just registering my attendance, I'm former Undersecretary Omar Romero, formerly Secretary for Legal of TED. I was invited also, but I have yet to get knowledge, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Were we able to issue subpoena at testification to the resource person that we invited subject of the show cause order?
No, Your Honor. No issuances for subpoena at testification, Your Honor.
Do I hear a motion from any member for the issuance of subpoena ad testificandum to the resource persons that we invited or subject of show cause order, and yet they refuse to attend and recognize this committee.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Honorable Flores.
I move that we issue a subpoena ad testificandum and the persons named by the COMSEC, those who were issued show cause order.
Your Honors, here.
Yes, Comsec.
The individuals who were previously issued show cause orders were Attorney Zuleika T. Lopez, Attorney Lemuel Ortonio, Attorney Rosalina Sanchez, Ms. Gina F. Acosta, Ms. Julieta Villadere, and Mr. Edward Fajarda, Your Honors.
So those will be, those persons or resource persons are subject of the show cause order. Okay. So do I hear a second to the motion of the Honorable King? Duly seconded, is there any objection? Hearing none, the COMSEC is ordered to issue a subpoena ad testificandum to the following resource person, 5 resource persons, namely
Your Honor, 6, Attorney Lopez, Attorney Ortonio, Attorney Sanchez, Ms. Acosta, Ms. Villadere, and Mr. Fajarda.
Okay, and may I also request that a bulletin or lookout bulletin order be issued as well, in coordination with the Bureau of Immigration and the DOJ.
Noted, Your Honor.
Meron pa po ba kayong mga concern? Wala na po. We will now, on that note, let us now proceed. Honorable Ako.
In the second hearing that we have had, I think we have required the Department of Budget and Management to provide a copy of the letter request from the Office of the Vice President for the release of contingent funds in some requests for personal services and maintenance and operating expenses in 2022. Was this compliant?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Yeah, DBM. May I know if the Commission on Audit, which was required to submit the following: a copy of the letter sent by the OVP through Attorney Lopez instructing the COA not to comply with the subpoena to the second issued by the House Committee on Appropriation.
Yes, Your Honor. Also complied by the Commission on Audit.
Documents related to the OVP's liquidation of the 125 billion confidential funds.
Yes, Your Honor. Complied.
Documents related to the purchase of information, including details about how the 14 million pesos was spent and for what information.
Complied as well, Your Honor.
Documents related to the payment of cash reward, including details about the recipient and purpose of the reward.
Complied as well, Your Honor.
Documents related to the OVP's safe houses, including the number of safe houses, their location, and maintenance costs.
Complied, Your Honor.
Documents related to the purchase of supplies, including details about suppliers and contractors.
Complied, Your Honor.
All attachments and documents related to the notice of disallowance issued by the Commission on Audit regarding the OVP's budget.
Complied, Your Honor.
And the audit action, in this case, the notice of disallowance and the liquidation report for the OVP's confidential funds.
Complied, Your Honor.
All supporting documents related to the Office of the Vice President's confidential funds are deemed necessary by the COA Intelligence and Confidential Funds Audit Unit for proper evaluation of the liquidation documents submitted.
Complied, Your Honor.
Documents related to the OVP's purchase of supplies, including details about suppliers and contractors.
Complied, Your Honor.
Documents related to the OVP's provision of medical and food aid, including details about the recipients and the specific types of medical supplies and food.
Complied, Your Honor.
Documents related to the OVP surveillance activities, including details about the specific areas where those activities were conducted,
Complied, Your Honor.
and data on the extent of proper implementation of the school-based feeding program, including the amount of funds affected.
Complied, Your Honor.
Now, for was Mr. Admin Abdul Malik Tumawis, he was required to submit the following, or the rental data for the OVP's head office, the satellite offices, and 2 extension offices, including the square footage of each office space, lease commencement dates, and the breakdown of rental costs for each type of rental. Was this submitted by Mr. Tumawis?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Now, COA's attorney Gloria A. Comoro was required to submit the following, or was required to submit copies of the rental or lease agreement for the 10 satellite offices and 2 extension offices of the Office of the Vice President.
Compliant as well, Your Honor.
The Bureau of Treasury, Mr. Adorna, was required to submit a position paper on salary grades, accountability and fidelity band coverage for SPOs or Special Disbursement Officers.
Compliant as well, Your Honor.
Thank you. And Mr. Ronaldo Monsaya, submit records of the conversation he had with Yusek Mercado and other DepEd officials during the lunch meeting in Linden Phase.
Not yet, Your Honor.
Okay. And lastly, Mr. Chair, Mr. Dexter A. Galvan was required to submit the following. A full report of the actions taken by DepEd to address the issues planned by the COA regarding the school-based feeding program, a list of the suppliers involved in such program, a report on the issues encountered in the program's implementation in previous years, and data on the number of schools and students affected by the lapses in implementation. Did Mr. Dexter Galvan, DepEd Assistant Secretary for Operations, submit these requirements, Mr. Chair?
At present, Your Honor, the Secretary is not in receipt of said documents.
He has not submitted.
Not to the knowledge of the Secretary, Your Honor, in the email as well, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is Mr. Musaya present? I think. Do you know this requirement?
Your Honor, to be honest, I just learned of this requirement today. I did not receive any order or document or email requirement to submit this, Your Honor.
Now you know that you were required to submit records of that conversation.
Yes, Your Honor, I will comply.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Dexter Galvan, is he around?
In your seat.
Mr. Galvan, did you know of this requirement for you to submit certain documents?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And may I know the reason why you haven't complied with this requirement?
We are confirming, as we have already prepared the reports prior, we shall confirm it in for the transmittal of the documents because we already prepared the answers for such, Mr. Chair. We do hope to transmit while this committee is ongoing.
In other words, you're going to submit the required documents today.
We will check, sir, if there was a
My
problem.
question is, are you trying to tell us that you will submit the documents required today?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, marami pong salamat for the administrative requirements. Thank you.
Okay, meron pa po bang ibang gustong mag-manifest? Wala na po. We will now proceed to the continuation of the deliberation and interpretation. But before we proceed, the Chair would like to recognize the presence of the Honorable Senior Vice Chairperson, the Honorable Bienvenido M. Abate Jr. from the 6th District of Manila, the Honorable Ernesto M. Junicio Jr. from the 1st District of Manila, and the Honorable Jervil B. Luistro from the 2nd District of Batangas. Ma'am.
Your Honor, I would also like to recognize the pleasure of the members. new resource persons, Director for Heidi Esprelas from the Commission on Audit, and from the Department of Education, Director for and Bank for Chairperson Attorney STOCST.
Okay, before we proceed to the interpellation proper, may I request the COMSEC to please administer the oath of the new invitees.
Thank you, Your Honor. To all the new resource persons invited and present today, kindly stand up and raise your right hand. All members of the Philippine Army as well, sirs, please stand up, even those in the family duly invited, sir. Alright. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the statements you will give before this committee shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? The oath has been administered, Your Honor.
Thank you. We will now proceed. The first to interpolate, the Honorable Romeo Ako. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and magandang umaga po sa atin lahat. Mr. Chair, I would just like to proceed or continue my interpellation in the second hearing for COA. Kasi in the last hearing, COA, Attorney Camora, are you? Yes. Kayo po ang sumagot nung tinanong ko kung yung confidential funds of the Office of the Vice President were liquidated in accordance with the protocol provided for by the Joint Circular. Kayo po ang sumagot doon, di ba? At sinabi po ninyo na the liquidation was done in accordance with the protocol provided by the circular. Totoo po ba yan?
Attorney Camora.
That is true po.
That's okay. And kayo po ba ay sumasang-ayon sa akin na yung liquidation is merely a documentary checklist and does not actually show that the expenses are actually reasonable or even? Would you agree with that?
I would have to agree, Mr. Chair.
Pakiulit po.
Agree po, it's documentary.
Do you agree with my statement, Madam?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And would you agree also that the confidential funds of the Office of the Vice President are public funds?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And would you agree that the COA, or the Commission on Audit, your agency, is the agency or government agency which is supposed to be the guardian to see to it that public funds are spent properly? Would you agree with that also?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now, since you have stated that the Office of the Vice President liquidated its confidential funds as required under Joint Circular, would you also agree with me that the accomplishment report provided by the Office of the Vice President were 100% implemented?
Mr. Chair, I would agree by 100% implemented po.
Na-implement ba yung pag-liquidate ng amount of 125 million as confidential fund of the Office of the Vice President?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the entire 125 billion was liquidated.
And would you agree with me that the documentary pieces of evidence submitted by the Office of the Vice President were merely acknowledgement receipts? Would you agree with me?
The documentary evidence of payment, yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, and could you give me the specifics insofar as the acknowledgement receipts submitted for the expenses insofar as the confidential fund of the is concerned, could you give us how much is for the rental of safe houses? How much would be the amount for purchase of information? Do we have the number of acknowledgement receipts submitted by the OPP?
For what account, Mr. Chair?
Rental of safe houses.
For rental for the period fourth quarter 2022.
Yes.
It's 16 million, Mr. Chair.
Rental of safe houses.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
The rental is for 11 days. Would you agree with me?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Since the accomplishment report.
Pursuant to the accomplishment report, yung amount for the rental of safe houses were paid for 11 days. Tama po?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. How about, and how many acknowledgement receipts were submitted today?
Mr. Chair, for rental of safe houses, we received 34 acknowledgement receipts.
How about for transportation expense? What was the amount and the number of acknowledgement receipts submitted for each liquidation?
For transportation, it's 10 million, and the number of recipients is 72.
72 acknowledgement receipts.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Now, for the purchase of information, the same requirement.
Mr. Chair.
Paano po yung sa purchase of information?
For the purchase of information based on the documentary evidence of payment, it's 14 million, and the number of recipients is 142, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And for, there are two items for reward, for medicine and various goods. Tama po.
Mr. Chair, there are actually three.
Three.
It's payment of reward medicines, and payment of reward values.
What would be the amount allotted for each of the three?
Based on the documentary evidence of payment, for payment of reward, it was 10,050,000.
For medicines, yeah.
For reward,
For reward lang. 10 million.
50,000.
Okay.
For the payment of reward medicines, it's 24,930,000.
For third.
And for the payment of reward various goods, it's 34,857,000.
Thank you. Konsek, pwede po bang pakita natin yung sample ng acknowledgement receipt for the payment of rental of safe house? Nakikita nyo, Atty. Camora, yung sample o yung actual acknowledgement receipt na sinabit ng OPP with the names of, shall we say, not shown because of confidentiality. Tama po ba ito?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Is there an acknowledgement receipt which acknowledge the amount of 500,000 pesos for the payment of rental of safe house?
I will check here. Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Meron po ba acknowledgement receipt amounting to 500,000 for the payment of rental of state house?
Meron po, Mr. Chair.
Para sa isang safe house lang ito.
We have no information, Mr. Chair. What we know is para sa isang recipient ng money paid po.
If I ask you the question, yung 500,000 ba yun for 11 days or for 1 day?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Ano po ang yes? 1 day or 11 days?
Since the accomplishment report says December 21 to 31, we think it's 11 days.
For 11 days.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
For a single safe house.
We have no information on how many safe houses that 500,000 was spent on, Mr. Chair.
Sabi niyo kanina, rental of safe houses in the amount of 16M with 34 acknowledgement receipts. Is it logical for me to conclude na 34 safe houses?
Mr. Chair, it just means that 34 people were paid for rental supplies, but we have to
Hindi,
know.
rental of safe houses, hindi po rental.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Bakit?
Pardon.
Para bang kita. So last time na question kita, you were very, very confident. Eh ngayon, parang tentative yung mga sagot mo sa akin. May know why? Nung last time, very, very confident kang sumasagot sa aking mga katanungan. Eh ngayon, very tentative ka and very, very careful ang pagsagot mo sa akin. May know the reason why?
There's no reason, Mr. Chair.
There's no change? Ay, hindi mo mapapansin yun. Ako ang nakakapansin kasi ako nagtanong sa iyo last time. At ako pa rin na nagtatanong sa iyo ngayon. And I noticed that change. Now, yung 34 acknowledgement receipts given by 34 persons, hindi ba nangangulugan yung 34 na safe houses yun?
Yes, sir. There's information that one receipt may pertain to one safe house.
Safe house, okay. So, if I ask you, yung receipt na amounting to 500,000 for the payment of rental of safe house, would it be logical for me to conclude that this is for one safe house for 11 days?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Para sa 11 days, yung 500,000 para sa isang safe house.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Now, if I ask you, how much would that be per day para sa isang safe house?
Mr. Chair, it would amount to 45,000 something. 45,454.55 per day.
45,000.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Per day. Ano po kaya klaseng safe house for 45,000 per day ang rental? Samantalang yung mga ibang magaganda lugar, eh, mas mura pa kayo sa rate sa 45,000. Will you give us an idea of that?
Mr. Chair, we do not have information on the safe houses.
What are you saying? You do not have any information about the safe house?
Since you were asking,
Hindi nyo alam kung high class ng safe house?
no information, Mr. Chair.
Yun na. Kasi nakapagtataka lang po na ang safe house per day will be rented with 45,000 for one safe house. Hindi po ba? Hindi kayo nagtataka.
Yes, Mr. Chair, but since they have submitted the liquidation reports po,
So, as long as an agency would submit yung mga receipts or acknowledgement receipts in their liquidation of the amount, wala na po kayong, you do not have the, shall we say, wherewithal or the jurisdiction to find out whether the expenditures are reasonable or true. Are you trying to tell us that?
it's more on the submission of the,
It's more on compliance
Yes,
with the
sir.
requirements. Yun lang.
yes, Mr.
And you are supposed to be the guardian of the use of public funds.
Mr. Chair, one of the documents is their certification, so
Yun, that is enough.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And you do not determine whether it's reasonable or true.
Since it is compliance, we open to
Okay. Yung pong pag-comply ng Office of the Vice President, as you have stated a while ago, in accordance dun sa joint circular, yung the amount of 125 million. So, ang ibig niyo pong sabihin, nag-submit yung Office of the Vice President ng liquidation report, physical and financial plan, documentary evidence of payment, at saka accomplishment report. Okay na po sa inyo.
We still review the documents reported this time.
And what is your objective when you review the document? Ano
Whether,
po ang tinitingnan nyo sa dokumento?
whether compliant po siya, Mr. Chair, sa requirements.
Kaya nga, tinignan nyo lang kung yung document would comply with the joint circular.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And you do not determine whether kasinungalingan na, totoo o hindi, yung nakalagay doon po sa document. Are you trying to tell this committee that?
Mr. Chair, we have issued an ND on the,
Hindi, sagutin niyo muna po yung aking katanungan. Para bang ang sinasabi niyo dito sa amin, dito sa committee na ito, nung nag-iimbestiga, na basta nakompleto po yung mga dokumento required by the joint circular, okay na sa inyo. Pero sinabi ninyo na nire-review ninyo yung documents. Ano po yung hinahanap ninyo dun sa dokumento? Na it is also in accordance with form and substance. Ganun po ba?
yes, Mr. Chair, since
And-
prescribed din po sa joint circular
Yes.
forms.
And you do not determine whether kasinungalingan may katotohanan. Yung nakalagay po doon.
We check the certification as long as the certification is there.
Hindi naman po yung sinasabi ko sa katanungan ko. Doon sa pagre-review ninyo, hindi kasali na i-review ninyo kung pwede totoo yung nilalagay doon ng hindi.
Mr. Chair, submission na.
Kaya nga, form and substance lang.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Whether it's unreasonable, out of this world, you do not care.
Unless it's really are, but Mr. Chair, it's more on submission po ng documents required.
Yeah. Sige. I would just like to state that in the last hearing, you confirmed that the liquidation report, all the documents supposed to be submitted in accordance with the joint circular, for the amount of 125 million, nakalagay doon yung 14 million for the purchase of information, pero walang detalye ano yung mga informasyon na yon, or it does not even show how important those information were. Worth 14 million, yung 35 million for supplies na ginamit in 11 days. Hindi po katakataka yun.
Mr. Chair,
35 million for supplies in 11 days. Hindi po kayo nagtaka doon?
as long as they submitted po the
Ano ang mangyayari pa?
acknowledgement receipts.
So long as they submit the acknowledgement receipts.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Further, Mr. Chair, yung accomplishment report does not require further details. And it is the only one under the joint circular.
Hindi ko na po tinatanong kasi kung ganito po yung inyong patakaran, di ba lang ako kayo mababantayan?
Mr. Chair, kaya po meron po silang certification head of
Basta may certification na but you do not even determine whether the content of the certification are reasonable or not. Whether they are true or not, you do not determine that.
Yes, Mr. Chair, given the nature of the fund po.
Kagaya ng 40 million for medical and food aid, ilang kayang informant ang ginamot at binigyan ng gamot? In 11 days, 35 million. Hindi po kayo nagtataka.
For supplies po,
Yes. Hindi po ba? Before the Manila for
recipients.
medical and food aid, 40 million. Hindi po ba?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. And for 11 days, to be spent for medicine, medical aid. Hindi kayo nagtataka. Paano na-spend yun in 11 days? 5 of which are holidays.
Mr. Chair, given the nature of the fund, it's confidential.
Doon po kayo bumabalik dun sa nature of the fund palagi. Napapansin ko na doon kayo nagko-cover. Pero definitely, your job is to see to it that public funds are spent properly. I asked you that.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Now, may I ask you, personally, are you safeguarding the expenditure of public funds? In so far as your job is concerned?
I would like to think so. Yes.
You would like to think so. Wala pa tayo kung ano nangyari. In other words, we can, or ECOA relies only on the documentary evidence of payment. Mainly. Tama po.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yun lang ang basehan ninyo.
Yes, Mr.
And yung documentary evidence of payment, whether it is a lie, a truth, reasonable or unreasonable, you do not care. That is what you're trying to tell us.
It is since it's just compliance, sir.
Kaya in other words, parang ang sinasabi nyo sa akin, I do not know how my other colleagues would take that. Pero parang ministerial na lang yung trabaho nyo pala.
If we read through the joint circular.
That is what you're trying to tell me. Okay? Ministerial lang pala yung trabaho. Masarap na trabaho yan. Ano ba? Yung pagtingnan natin ang liquidation report, ang nakalagay lang dito ay inastos ng Office of the Vice President the amount of 125 million from December 21 to 31, 2022 or 11 days. And this was certified by the Vice President, by the Special Disbursing Officer, Madam Gina Acosta, and the Chief Accountant, Madam Julieta Villadrey. Would that be correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Now, kung babase naman po tayo dun sa accomplishment report, ang makikita lang natin dito ay gumastos ang Office of the Vice President 125 million from December 21 to 31, 2022 for surveillance and monitoring activities in 132 areas. Dito rin, wala tayong magawa. Kagaya ng sagot po nyo sa akin, we have no choice but to check the documentary evidence of payments submitted by the office para malaman kung saan or paano ginastos ng OPP yung 125 million. Yun po yung pinararating sa amin.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So, yung titignan po natin talaga is yung pinakita natin acknowledgement receipt, ganyan lang talaga ang format.
That's what,
Nakalagay lang ang amount, pangalan, signature ng tumanggap, at date kung kailan niya ito natanggap. That is it.
yes, Mr. Chair. Yun yung sinabit ko nila sa atin.
And COA does not try to determine kung sino man yung tao yun, existing ba siya o hindi. You do not.
No, Mr. Chair.
No, thank you. Para lang po may information. So, you do not have any means or you do not exert any means para madinig kung totoo yung mga nakalagay sa acknowledgement. You just take it hook, line, and sinker na totoo yun.
Mr. Chair, probably we could, but given the limited
Hindi mo lang ID yung tao na sinasabi.
Mr. Chair.
Wala. Talagang sikretong-sikreto.
What was submitted to us, that is what we are, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Pwede ko rin ba i-conclude na walang paraan ng COA para naman kung gagawa-gawa ng acknowledgement receipts na ito?
If we base it on the joint circular.
Pakisagot niyo po yung aking katanungan. Hindi ko po tinatanong yung tungkol sa joint circular or whatever. Ang katanungan ko po wala pong paraan na magagawa ang COA para malaman kung gawa-gawa lang ang mga acknowledgement receipts na sinabit. Would my statement be correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Sabi mo pa rin? Tama?
Tama po.
Okay. Sa madaling salita, kahit na sabihin natin hindi naman talaga natanggap ng isang tao yung amount of 500,000 for the payment of the same houses, kagaya na nakalagay kanina, hindi talaga sinusuri ng COA ito. Talagang hindi kasama sa inyong job description na suriin ito. In spite of the fact na sinabi nyo kanina, na nire-review nyo naman yung mga dokumento nito. Tama?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Actually, hindi ito aking pinagkakabahala Kung tutuusin natin, at least, kung nakalagay dyan, Juan de la Cruz ang una Pero may nakikita akong acknowledgement receipt sa mga sinamit ko ninyo na initials lang ang nakalagay. Instead na, for example, Juan de la Cruz, J. Cruz lang nakalagay na tumanggap ng amount of 500,000 for the payment of safe houses mula sa Office of the Vice President. Kung ganitong proof lang ang papasada sa COA, wala na talaga kayong paraan para matanong yung taong tumanggap ng pera. Di po ba?
Yes, Mr. Chair. It is really yung pag sa hotel and conflict money po. There's no verification. Also, even if we have means right now, yung manpower po ng IFOM cannot handle if alone itong si OPT, we cannot verify all those people and we audit all confidential intelligence funds. So